Just waiting on the technology to respond appropriately. Yes, good morning. Welcome to another important ceremony in the life of the legal profession. And this is the ceremony in which we publicly recognize what has already been done through His Excellency. And so it is a very significant marker in the life of the particular attorney and also an indication to other attorneys of the standard that needs to be attained for those who wish to be elevated to the rank of King's Counsel. And this morning we have Mrs. Daniela Gentles Silveira, who will be, shall I say, recognized publicly and called to the inner bar for her many years of outstanding work as counsel. And I have known her for quite some time, and I take it that her husband is here. Oh, that is Mr. Silveira. And may I tell you, sir, that she has been married now for, is it at least a decade? Yes, and ever since she got married, she hasn't stopped smiling. And she continues to smile. So what you have undoubtedly contributed to her success at the bar and getting her to this point. And it is also so my congratulations to you and to thank you for the support that you have given to her, because success in any endeavor is not a solo event. There are persons who come into your lives at different points and they make the contribution at that moment in time, some longer than others, that will enable you to achieve professional success and distinction. But even before Mr. Silveira had the honor of taking her hand in marriage, there's a family unit from which she comes, in terms of the biological family unit. And that unit also plays a very significant role in the nurturing and development of the person, preparing, in this case, Mrs. Gentle Silveira, not just for her professional endeavors, but also for those of being a wife and a life partner. So we wish to acknowledge the contribution made by her family, parents, aunts, the extended family, everyone, siblings, and sometimes you may wonder, what do the siblings contribute? Anybody who has been in a family with 3 or 4 children, you know you will have severe disagreements and even fights. So that aspect of your life now prepares you for reconciliation and how to resolve disputes so you can have smooth and harmonious relationships. So all experiences that happen to you are positive from that standpoint. They prepare you for your life's journey, even though you may not necessarily be aware of the path that your life will take at that moment in time. Now, for the criteria for appointment as Queen's Counsel, the applicant must be an attorney at law of at least 10 years standing. I said King's Counsel, I should say, because it's, Queen Elizabeth had been around for such a long time. The applicant must be an attorney at law for at least 10 years. The applicant must be of the highest personal standing and integrity. The applicant must have demonstrated professional eminence in the field of advocacy. And the applicant should exhibit the characteristics of a leader at the bar. The applicant should have no criminal conviction and no finding of culpability in disciplinary proceedings locally or overseas involving dishonesty or moral turpitude. So those are the criteria. And in respect of the process by which we get here, the initial process begins with an application by the individual and by a gazette dated July 1, 1997. The process was formalized into the following: that all applications should be submitted to the Governor General through the Chief Justice, and on receipt of the application, the Chief Justice shall convene a meeting of the undermentioned committee of which he is chairman. A, the Attorney General. B, the President of the Court of Appeal. C, the Chairman of the General Legal Council. D, President of the Jamaican Bar Association. E, President of the Advocates Association of Jamaica. F, a practicing Queen's Counsel appointed by the other 6 members of the committee and who shall serve for a term of 3 years, renewable for 1 further term only. This committee will be responsible for making recommendations for appointments of Queen's Counsel. And then after the deliberations of the committee, their recommendations will be submitted by the Attorney General to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister will thereafter advise the Governor General on the exercise of the prerogative of the Crown for the appointment of King's Counsel. So as a practical matter, because sometimes these processes, it is said, are shrouded in secrecy, but there's really no secret to it. So that when the applications come in, what we do is that we disseminate them to the relevant bodies and persons as indicated in the Gazette, and they do their internal consultation, and then the committee meets and the decision is made. So it is not the decision of the Chief Justice or the President of the Court of Appeal or by the bar. It is a collective decision of persons within the legal profession who are in a position to know, who make the decisions. And so that is how the process is conducted. So this morning, joining us here on the bench, we have President of the Court of Appeal, Honorable Mr. Justice Brooks. We have Honorable Mr. Justice David Batts, and we have Justice Althea Jarrett, one of our newest justices, the Supreme Court. So welcome her publicly in this way to the Supreme Court, and congratulations to her on her recent appointment. And so with those opening remarks, we're going to invite King's Counsel, Mr. Alan Wood, to propose Mrs. Daniela Gentles Silveira.
May it please you, my Lord, Chief Justice, my lords and my lady. I rise to speak of my learned friend, Daniela Gentles Silveira. My learned friend was called to the bar in 1994 after obtaining an initial degree in history from the University of the West Indies, and thereafter reading for her law degree at the University of Dundee, where she gained first-class honors. Before turning to the law, while attending secondary school at Campion College, she says she aspired to be a vet. However, like so many frustrated would-be medics who are challenged by subjects such as chemistry, biology, and math, she realized that her calling lay elsewhere. At that time, she probably thought it lay with tennis. However, she was prompted to the law by her grandfather, Louis Biles, himself a well-known distinguished attorney, who arranged for her to spend her summers firstly with Sonia Jones and thereafter from the age of 16 with Douglas Brandon, venerable partner in the firm of Livingston, Alexander and Levy. Daniela recounts that she would spend her days sitting with Douglas in his office, discussing his matters. He shared his experiences while he typed away at his work. It was during that period of mentorship that she was convinced that she wanted to be a lawyer. On being called to the bar, she was invited to join the firm's litigation department, where she developed into an outstanding advocate. With keen insight into the most complex of legal problems and an enormous capacity for work, she excelled by being just as prepared as any lead advocate in the matter to which she was assigned. She always was ready and able to take over if for any reason she had to do so. Her leadership qualities became readily apparent. Without fanfare, she is equally adept at leading in a complex commercial case or in a complex commercial transaction. And she does so with courtesy and consideration to her opponents, no matter the heat generated in the particular dispute, and invariably lending assistance where she can to those opponents, and thereby, at times, winning over the most antagonistic of opposing counsel. As a leader at the bar, Mrs. Gentle Silvera served her profession and the public well. She became a member of the disciplinary committee of the General Legal Counsel in 2005. Following her marriage to David Silvera, she decided to take a break from the committee in 2009. After 6 months, she was told by the then redoubtable Pamela Benker-Coker, King's Counsel, who chaired the committee, that having had her break, it was time to return to the work, and work she has. Daniela assumed the chairmanship of the disciplinary committee in 2017, and under her inspired leadership, an electronic filing system was introduced, the procedures for hearing of complaints was modified, and the committee reinvigorated to successfully clear what was thought then to be an impossible backlog of complaints. On a lighter note, Daniela remains one of the few ardent supporters in Jamaica of the group ABBA. She is a passionate tennis player, overcoming a broken hand suffered while playing tennis to become a finalist in this year's Amateur All-Jamaica National Championships. She believes that there is no limit to her tennis career, and who are we to gainsay her? Daniela has been supported by her husband, David. She's a devoted wife and mother, and I extend hearty congratulations to Daniela, to her husband, David, her stepsons, Zach and Luca, and her brother, who is here from overseas, and to her extended family. It is my privilege to move that Daniel Rachel Gentle Silvera be invited to take the oath and to be seated at the inner bar. May it please you.
Very well, Mr. Wood. Thank you very much, Mrs. Gentle Silvera. I invite you to make the declaration.
I, Daniela Rachel Gentle Silvera, do declare that well and truly I will serve the King as one of his council, learned in the law, and truly counsel the King in his matters when I shall be called, and duly and truly minister the King's matters and sue the King's process after the course of the law and after my cunning. For any matter against the King, where the King is party, I will take no wages or fee of any man, save as I shall otherwise be permitted. I will duly, in convenient time, speed such matters as any other person shall have to do in the law against the king, as I may lawfully do, without long delay, tracting and tarrying the party on his lawful process, in that to me belongeth. I will be attendant to the king matters when I be called thereto.
Thank you. And by the time I now invite you to take your seat at the inner bar. Thank you very much. So Mrs. Kitson Walters. Mrs. Kitson. No, I'm calling you Kitson Walters. I know Kitson Walters.
I know what there are, so.
Yes.
It tends to follow me. Thank you so much, my Lord. Chief Justice. My Lord Chief Justice, my Lord President, my Lord Batts, and my lady. I am indeed honored to be asked to address this gathering, particularly the family of Daniela. My learned counsel, King's Counsel, I entirely echo the sentiments expressed by my learned friend, Mr. Wood. I have had the privilege of appearing with Mrs. Gentle Silvera and against her, and at all times courteous, pleasant, hardworking. You cannot come unprepared in a matter in which you appear against Mrs. Silvera Gentles. And these, my lords, my lady, are not mere blandishments, well earned. And of course, I speak on behalf of the General Legal Counsel. As Mr. Wood has indicated, we are delighted with the leadership of Mrs. Gentle Silvera. She and her members have worked assiduously, and the clearance of that backlog is a testimony of the hard work, the drive that Mrs. Gentle Silvera employs in that disciplinary committee. And so we thank her, and we look forward to her continued contribution as an able member of the disciplinary committee. I would not wish to delay matters here, and so may it please my lord, my lady, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alexander Williams.
May it so please you, my Lord Chief Justice, my Lord President, my Lord Batts, my lady Jared. My Lord Chief reminded us of the criteria to be elevated to the inner bar. And I would like to think, my Lord, that what the criteria seeks to do is to capture the notion and expectation that the best of us will be identified and admitted to the inner bar. I have no doubt and no hesitation today in saying that today we have fulfilled that notion and expectation. Newly minted King's Counsel, and I hope she'll forgive me for advertising on her behalf, given that I believe she's the chair of the advertising committee, on the advertising committee of the bar. She's to be regarded as a lawyer's lawyer. I've had the personal experience of engaging learned King's Counsel on my behalf, and I must say the experience as a mere client was one which taught me lessons as to how I should conduct myself as an attorney at law. So much so, and I hope she won't mind me saying this, I rewarded her with a gift basket, as I recall, with, let's just say, she was called to the bar in another respect with that gift basket.
But having said all of that, she's not only a lawyer's lawyer, she also protects the profession in her duties and responsibilities at the General Legal Counsel. I believe, her elevation here today has been long overdue, well earned, and I can't think of any other way in which to express my own personal gratitude to her in that particular matter by being here today, but also to express the best wishes of the Jamaican Bar Association in the way in which she has conducted herself, and I'm sure will continue to conduct herself as King's Counsel. May it so please you.
Yes, thank you very much. Now, I cannot help but observe that we have three eminent King's Counsel present, and it is true that they were not on the program here, but you know, from those of us from rural Jamaica, such as myself, you know that whenever you have a program, particularly, for example, at funerals, there's always an open mic to invite those who are not on the official program now to pay their respect. So I know I'm taking you off guard, but this is an opportunity now for the three King's Counsel present to make their remarks if they so wish. So we begin with Mr. Michael Hilton, then Mrs. Sandra Minot Phillips, then Mrs. Small Davis.
Thank you, my Lord Chief Justice. I was hoping you might have done that. My Lord Chief Justice, my Lord President, my Lord, my Lady, speaking both for myself and the King's Counsel group, my apologies, we are very pleased to be able to congratulate and welcome Daniela Gentle-Silvero to our group. She has been a leader at the bar for some time, and her elevation to this rank doesn't make her a leader of the bar. It just recognizes what she has been doing and what she has achieved. The comments made by learned friend Mr. Wood and Mr. Williams in relation to her work, and by the chairman of the GLC, in relation to her work at the disciplinary committee cannot be overstated. It's not just hard work, it's leadership and innovation. And it is such a, in ways, thankless task, disciplining your colleagues. But we fought, people like Dr. Barnett and so on, fought to have a self-regulated profession, not a profession regulated by the government or by others. And for that to continue, it needs to be regulated properly and robustly, which is something that Council has done. Let me not overstay your kindness, Chief Justice. I would just close by repeating my congratulations and welcome to Mrs. Gentle-Silvero. Thank you.
Mrs. Minot Phillips.
Lady. My friend, Mrs. Daniela Gentle-Silvero, King's Counsel, has a formidable intellect. And that formidable intellect is presented in a manner which shows her dedication to her craft, her craftsmanship as an attorney at law. I have had the pleasure, like my friend, Mrs. Kitson, of appearing with her. I can't recall having appeared against her, for which I'm grateful. I have had her as my client in many, many, many matters. And I am honored to have received the invitation to be present here in person this morning. Thank you, Daniela. She also happens to be my neighbor. We live beside each other. So I know her, and I know her husband, David. I know members of her family, and I wish to congratulate them all on this auspicious occasion. To her firm, Livingston, Alexander and Levy, since I'm probably one of the few people here not a member of it, let me extend my congratulations to them too for having given her the environment that has allowed her to not only become personally so good at what she does, but also to do that on behalf of the profession. We are grateful to you for having allowed her that space. I too have no desire to overstay my invitation, my Lord Chief Justice and my lords and my ladies. So with those words, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Small Davis.
My please you, my lords, my lady. I also wish to say congratulations to my friend and colleague, Daniela Gentle Silverio, King's Counsel. We are contemporaries, and so it brings me an extra special warmth to welcome her to the inner bar, a position for which she is well deserved and well ready to take on. I wish to highlight just the two things that I think that are most important about the addition of Daniela, the elevation of Daniela to King's Counsel, and that is her, as has been said before, the leadership and mentorship that she provides. It goes beyond a scope which we cannot fully canvass here today. It is known by many within the disciplinary committee that although it is a task that seems unpleasant, but is necessary, as Mr. Hilton King's Counsel has said, the equanimity with which she does it and with which she leads the committee is beyond measure and to the benefit of the bar in its entirety, even though at times certain members of the profession may not see it that way. They will not recognize the integrity to which she brings to her duties in that regard. I also want to talk about her leadership at the bar and in what has been mentioned by Mr. Wood, King's Counsel, in the manner in which she deals with her own opponents, even sometimes giving them free gifts, guidance, which I will quarrel with her and no end in office. Why did you tell them that? Why did you point that out? Why? But that is her way, and it is what has made her outstanding in her regard, because she considers that, as she says to me frequently, well, the case is a case. It doesn't matter if I point out this to them. And so it just shows her, that tells you who she is. It tells you who she is. And she's a leader within the firm in many regards, both in the business aspect as well as the professional aspect. All the young associates that we have, they gather in her office all the time because she's always willing, always ready to assist. Chief Justice, I am inviting you to take full advantage of all the attributes that Mrs. Gentle Silverio brings to the table, and including perhaps initiating a lawyers tennis association that we can get us, because I know that it's important for wellness, physical wellness, and it may be that that is something that we all ought to look at, and I propose Mrs. Gentle Silverio, King's Counsel. May you please, my lord.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So have the reply now from Mrs. Gentle Silverio, and then we'll have the remarks from the other members of the bench.
May it please you, my lords, my lady. When I heard my honored senior Mr. Wood start this speech, I said, oh Lord, he has taken the first paragraph of my speech. But be that with me, I will see. As he has said, from I was around 13, I wanted to be a lawyer. I originally really wanted to be a vet. But one night, while sitting down doing my math homework, it dawned on me, this is not working out. You're really no good at this. You're not good at the sciences. And I thought, okay, history and literature. That doesn't seem to be bad. But apart from that, my grandfather was a lawyer. And I went and I spoke to him and my father. And the next thing I knew, that summer, I was working at the offices of Sonia Jones. I followed her up and down the courts, and she would patiently and with humor entertain all of my excitement and exuberance as we discuss each case on the way back to the office from the courthouse. By the end of that summer, I was sold on the law. I worked a couple more summers with SJ, and then I moved on to Livingston, Alexander, and Levy. I remember feeling like I was a traitor when I had to tell her that I think I was moving to Livingston, Alexander, and Levy. But in true form, she encouraged me to go to the big firm and to explore the civil side of the law. So I went to Laval, I think in the summer of either 1989 or 1990. Prior to me I hadn't even entered the LLB program. And that summer was the beginning of my relationship with Laval. After a couple of summers at Laval, I said, okay, I want to be a civil litigator. But the truth is, having attended a few criminal trials and having to go to the morgue for my forensic science part of the criminal law and practice program at the law school, I decided that the criminal law was probably not for me. So summer after summer, I went to work at Livingston until I was called to the bar. And having been called to the bar, I've never left. In hindsight, I really don't know what the partners, what assistance I could have been to the partners, as initially I wasn't even at law school. But during those summers, I spent a lot of time, as you've heard, with Douglas Brandon and my Lord Batts. And I know they must have had the patience of Job, as I knew nothing but asked a lot of questions. Laval has become over the years my home away from home. In fact, if you ask my husband and my friends, they will tell you at times it seems like Laval is my main home. And not just because I spend a lot of time there, but also because I view the partners, both present and former, and the associates as a family. A family is where you grow under the watchful eyes of your parents who shower you with love, support, encouragement, as well as a space to grow. That is what I found at Laval, and I still find it to this day. Most people think that once you become a lawyer, you know everything, and you're ready to put all your arguments across vociferously before a judge. But the truth is, as a young counsel, I did not always have the courage to do that. I remember standing up in court in the early days, and when being challenged by the judge, I must have looked like a deer in the headlights. However, as time went on, I appeared in matters with attorneys like King's Counsel, Mr. Alan Wood, Mr. Ransford Braham, and Justice Batts. And I gained the confidence as they not only showed me how it was done, but were supportive of me and generous with their advice. Now I tend to make my submissions to the court, at times forcefully, but almost invariably quickly, and with great enthusiasm, as many of the judges who you ask, who I refer before you, will say. During my time, I was sometimes thrown into the deep end by my seniors, and this forced me to swim, as I didn't want to sink. But the faith that they showed in me has left an indelible mark, which is something for which I will be forever grateful. He probably doesn't remember it, but I'm going to embarrass him. But one of those swimming lessons came from my learning friend, Mr. Ransford Braham. I remember one day, he sent me to apply for an adjournment of a matter. He gave me the file on a Monday morning, and I went up to Court 10, this building, before Justice Hazel Harris. He had another trial, so he asked me to adjourn the matter. So I went before Justice Harris, and I applied for the adjournment. I was for the defendant. The claimant's attorney opposed the adjournment. And Justice Harris said, well, Ms. Gentles, are you holding for Mr. Braham? And I said, yes, I'm holding for him, and he's in another trial. And she said, well, you're holding. Let's get on with the matter. So I pleaded with her and said, well, could I go and speak to Mr. Braham? She graciously allowed me to go and speak to Mr. Braham. I told him what the judge had said. And by that time, he was caught up in his case. And he said, well, Daniela, you will have to proceed with the case. So I came back, started the case, right? And I think Justice Harris must have been sorry for me, because by the lunch and adjournment, she said to me, and I will say this, the examination in chief had just finished. Thank God, in those days there were no witness statements. So the examination chief took the entire morning. And by the lunch and adjournment, she said to me, I'm going to grant you this adjournment to go and prepare. I ran back to the office, got all the books on, I think, sale of land, researched the matter until that night, came back, and I actually won the case. Right? But it was a salutary lesson for me. And what it taught me is that no matter what, always be prepared once you've taken on the responsibility of a case. And more importantly, never, ever ask for an adjournment. As stated by Oscar Wilde, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. I have tried to learn from many of the advocates who appear in these courts, some of whom are sitting here today, and for whom I have the utmost respect and will be forever grateful. As a junior to King's Counsel Alan Wood, I've been given the opportunity to watch how so thoroughly to prepare a case that every possible argument is anticipated and answered. I've sat in court and thought, why am I taking a paragraph to make one point to the court, whereas my learned friend, Mr. Michael Hilton, is making the same point in 15 pages? Mr. Hilton, I still endeavor one day to be able to so succinctly set out my legal submissions in only 15 pages. I've started at 60 and I think I'm now at 35. There are so many attorneys who have contributed to my development as an attorney by giving me cases to argue or in many other ways. This has helped to develop not only my confidence, but also my research, drafting, and advocacy skills. I'm grateful for their guidance throughout the years and the nurturing environment they provided that allowed me to flourish. It is impossible to name all of them, but Paul Cooper and Basil Parker come to mind. Laval has always been a firm that gives back to the profession. When I reached 10 years at the bar, Josh Learine called me into his office and told me that he was recommending me to sit on the disciplinary committee of the General Legal Counsel. He explained what it entailed, the importance of it, and told me he thought I was aptly suited to sit on it. I took on the role, and 19 years later, I'm still on the committee. Not only has that exposure helped me personally in my own practice, but it's a constant reminder of the important role it plays in our profession as the committee strives to ensure that the ethical standards of the profession are upheld so as to sustain public confidence in the integrity of the profession. Throughout my time sitting on the disciplinary committee, I have received unwavering support from the other members and past chairmen. Today, I wish to thank them for their support. It would be remiss of me not to express my gratitude to the numerous clients who have over the years expressed confidence and trust in my abilities to represent them in their legal disputes, as without those clients, I would not be here today. Without their cases, judges in the courts, who have for the most part courteously given me a listening ear, would not have come to know me. Lastly, but by no means least, I must recognize my family and friends. Throughout my childhood, my father never told me how to live, but he led by example. He taught me that when faced with adversity and tragedy, I must pick myself up, brush myself off, and move on. He, along with my grandfather, encouraged me to pursue my dreams and to work hard to achieve them. They were always behind the scenes, guiding me and giving me all the support necessary. Unfortunately, my father died before I finished my legal studies, but the lessons he taught me put me in good stead to handle the highs and lows of life. The truth is, I've been lucky, as I've been given a lot of support from family and friends. My brother Jason has been a constant support for me as we navigated life together, having lost both our parents very young. There is another man in my life who I would like to publicly thank. He has been one of the greatest cheerleaders, and that is my husband, David, who has encouraged me every step of the way and allowed me to grow in the law without ever showing any resentment for the time it has taken away from us and our family. Many of my friends, some of who are here today, have been unwavering in their support for me and my legal career and have been a sounding board whenever I've needed one, and I dare say a part of my cheerleading squad. My lords and my ladies, I'm indeed honored to have been appointed one of His Majesty's King's Council, and I will continue to always strive to uphold the high standards of the profession, both ethically and otherwise, and to encourage young counsel. May it please you.
Thank you very much, King's Counsel. So we'll now have the President making his remarks.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chief Justice. Honorable Chief Justice, my Lord, my Lady, King's Counsel, Council, ladies and gentlemen. Let me firstly express my thanks to the Honorable Chief Justice for allowing me to participate in this ceremony. I'm very pleased to be a part of it. Also, I wish to add my quota of congratulations to our newest King's Counsel, Mrs. Daniela Gentles-Silvera. As Mr. Wood has said, she has impacted the profession in so many ways, and I have been a witness in at least 3 of those arenas. Firstly, as counsel, I don't actually remember appearing against her, so I don't know if I was one of the aggressive ones that she had to win over. But certainly, she did win me over. I remember turning up at the Court of Appeal without gown or bib. Wasn't bib. Tabs one day. And I had to lean on her. She loaned me her gown. She couldn't lend me the bib because it was a lacy. One of those lacy ones, so I had to get that elsewhere. But the willingness that she just volunteered to let me have it impacted me at the time and certainly won me over from then. As a judge, both in this court and in the Court of Appeal, she has impressed me endlessly. One of the cases that stood out for me was she appeared in I think it was a stay of execution, stay of injunction to prevent a mortgage company from selling a property. And the level of preparation, the depth of the analysis so impressed me that it was one of the things that you certainly learn from counsel, the benefit that they can bring to the bench. And she has done so at the Court of Appeal as well during my time. I also had the privilege of appearing of being on the General Legal Council as the Chief Justice's representatives, and I would see her presentations to the council on behalf of the disciplinary committee. And of course, she was always well prepared, knowledgeable of the issues that had to be dealt with. So really she has really impressed me in terms of all those aspects of the profession. So congratulations to her. I know that my Lord Batts and the rest of the Harbour Street crew, present and past, are bursting with pride with this morning's proceedings. And I wish to thank them for supporting her during her time. Thanks to her family for that support as well. Congratulations, my learned sister.
Yes, thank you very much, President. We'll now hear from Honorable Mr. Justice David Batts.
Thank you, my Lord Chief Justice. I was still a young lawyer at Livingston when Mr. Douglas Brandon ushered into my office a non-law student who looked like a little girl, the granddaughter of a very good client. And he said, "Young Batts, find something for her to do." So for that entire summer, her desk was my window ledge in my office. She tagged along behind me from court to court, wherever I went. Even one memorable afternoon, attending a football game in Arnett Gardens with me. But her thirst for knowledge, her resilience, and her capacity for hard work was evident even from then. When she embarked on the practice of law, she chose Livingston Alexander and Levy as her place of abode. And she joined our litigation department. She eventually became a partner. And it has been my pleasure to work alongside her for, I think, over 20 years. Now, she's called to the inner bar. It's a very well-deserved honor. Congratulations, Mistress Gentles Silvera. Thank you.
So now I have the, thank you, Justice Batts, marks from Justice Althea Jarrett.
Thank you, my Lord Chief Justice, my Lord President, my Lord Batts. I too wish to extend my own hearty congratulations to Mrs. Daniela Gentle Silvera on taking silk. Mrs. Gentle Silvera has long been a leader at the bar, exemplified by her sound advocacy, her meticulous and keen attention to detail in both her oral and written submissions, but above all, her demonstration of unfailing respect for the court and for counsel. Her exceptional leadership of the Disciplinary Committee of the General Legal Counsel is well known by its members, and I was a former member invited to sit on that committee by King's Counsel. And her leadership is another example of her professional eminence. The changes she has implemented, as King's Counsel, Mr. Hilton, referenced them, since becoming chairman, have resulted in significant improvements in the disposal of complaints and the overall productivity of the committee. I encourage you, King's Counsel, to continue to devote as much time as you can find to provide mentorship to young counsel who require the support, guidance, and counsel of senior and experienced members of the bar, such as yourself. In closing, I'm only left to say to you, King's Counsel, all the very best and continued successes. May it so please you.
Thank you very much, Justice Jarrett. Now this brings us almost, well, virtually to the end of this morning's ceremony. And I think it is important to again recognize the family members, her husband, and for them to hear from Mrs. Gentle Silvera's colleagues to the contribution that she has made to the profession. Because oftentimes we see our relatives and we say, oh, that person is a doctor or that person is a lawyer. But at times we don't, as family members, appreciate the commitment and the quality of work that they do in their particular profession. And so it is really pleasing for me, for you to be here, to hear from judges, to hear from her colleagues and members of her firm as to her work and worth. And so it will give you perhaps not even, I won't say greater understanding, but a greater appreciation of the time that she has spent away from family and family engagements, because all of us here know the intense nature of the practice of law. And as you rise to eminence in your profession, it gets greater, not any less, because you now become sought after. And so the matters that you are able to appearing tend to be the more complex ones. So let me just warn you a bit now that she's King's Counsel, I won't say she'll be available to you less, but I would not expect her time with you to increase. So thank you very much for attending. And so now, King's Counsel, do you move?
I'll move, my lord. Yes, my lord.
Yes. So let's adjourn, please.